Hi everyone, I'm going to share a document that has been sent to various medias and various individuals, and it is a proposal for cancelling Article 50 or indefinitely pausing it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the document on screen and just slowly scroll through it, and you can pause it at any point that you want to read it, or you can connect with me through Facebook in order to receive a copy of that, because I've not published it online. I was thinking of doing it as a Facebook note or perhaps through WordPress, um, but I think that the British public need to understand exactly what is going on, because this is serious. Brexit is very, very serious, and it does amount to an attack against the British people. Okay, when you remove the xenophobia, Cambridge Analytica, the illicit funds that Brexit, uh, the Leave campaign actually received, it is absolutely despicable. It's a subversion of the democratic process. We're witnessing a hijack of the democracy and all of the rights that the people of post-World War II Britain had established here. And basically, decades of British history that was hard fought for, paid for by the blood of our ancestors, men like my grandfather, women like my grandmother, who worked hard, who suffered and struggled through immense deprivation in order to achieve the rights that, as far as they were concerned, were to be bequeathed to all future generations. Now that is where British culture begins. Okay, that is where British culture begins. Post World War II. That's British culture. That was the one time in history that the vast majority of the people of Britain, 80% of the population, actually got a say in how our country was going to be run and managed, and what kind of economy and political and social ethos we were going to be living and working in. That represented over 200 years of people campaigning, marching, first even for the right to have unions, for the rights to vote, for the rights to have human rights. All of those things were campaigned for over 100 years. And it did take, finally, 2 world wars and the mass amount of blood that was spilled, that the aristocracy that were governing us absolutely depended. And that was when the balance shifted. Because who needed who? When push came to shove, who needed who? Who was required to actually pick up the guns and go and fight in the trenches? Not the aristocracy, not the people, the lords and peers of parliament. No, it was the common people that were relied on to make the sacrifice, to work in the bomb factories, to get on the front lines, to risk their lives for their country, a country that provided us with what? Actually, at the time, nothing. People were having to watch their elderly and their sick children die because there was no NHS. People had no rights to retirement and a pension. There were no rights for women. You know, half pay for women, even in the same jobs as men. They were given half the pay. No maternity leave. All of these things. And then since we joined the EU, that the people of this country elected to enter the EU after Edward Heath took us in there illegally, really, without a referendum. It was only because a Labour government came in, Wilson, and he actually sorted out a deal that was widely published. Everybody knew what the Labour deal was for remaining in Europe, because people were asked then if they want to remain or if they want to leave the EU. People voted to remain under the terms of the Labour New Deal. Now, the British public know absolutely nothing about the Tory deal, really, other than from what we can see of why the Tories wanted Brexit in the first place, which is specifically and only and solely to protect London city financiers and their tax havens and their illegal tax breaks and all their fraudulent financial activity that the EU is now bringing legislation in to absolutely restrict. And Britain wants none of it. The British financial interests want none of it. And don't forget, those are the same financial interests that are so corrupt their banks collapsed under the weight of their crime and corruption. And who's been expected to bail them out? The British people. And who's been suffering? Who's been suffering austerity? The people of Britain on every level, from the very poorest to right up into the middle classes and the upper middle classes. Even the upper middle classes have been losing their businesses, and Brexit, well, it's the final blow basically. And we are facing an existential threat, and I cannot put that seriously enough. Now, I am aware I'm a nobody in this society, commonly ridiculed, scorned, derided. But I am a British citizen. I'm a survivor of child abuse. I have lived on the very bottom of this society and also the upper echelons of society. I understand what is going on. I devote my time to being aware of what is going on in the world around me and to take responsibility to share that information, to share my understanding. And what I'm sharing here, what is going to be, what you will read in this document, is extremely serious. And it is far more serious, actually, than the British media presently is showing, though I do have to say The Guardian, of all the newspapers, has actually endeavoured to share more of the news and more on balance of the news than other newspapers. I'm not saying it isn't corporately controlled and isn't to some degree serving covert interests of the establishment. Who knows? But as far as I'm aware, a lot of the journalists, the reporters working for The Guardian are, genuinely sharing their thoughts and opinions and accurate news. Okay. Now, before I share you the document, I just want to focus on this because we've got Jeremy Corbyn here, who really, he represents, as a politician within the present political arena, as the last hope, really, of any sense and sanity ruling Britain. But I am very, very disturbed to see that the man is very malleable and open to persuasion, whatever kind of persuasion it is. We don't know whether he's been threatened. I certainly don't believe he's being bribed. But we don't know what kind of threats as an individual and as head of the Labour Party he is actually facing, or what lies he's being told secretly as a fact. Because he's swinging from one side to the other. 1 minute he's going, oh, well, maybe we should cancel Brexit, have a second referendum. And then suddenly he's saying, no, we don't back a second referendum. We want a soft Brexit. Now, Theresa May has stated that and this is a fact, Theresa May has stated that if there's no hard Brexit, that a soft Brexit would leave the Tories up in arms. There'd be outrage among the Tories if we get a soft Brexit. So what was her deal then? Her deal had to be a hard Brexit, but you can guarantee that there'd have been a few little clauses in it that profited only the financial interests of central London, the City of London, which you have to get your heads around it, British people. You have to start pulling your head out of this label, conspiracy theory. It is not a conspiracy theory that London City, the home of finance, of global finance, it is not a conspiracy theory that that city is a separate, independent state within Britain. Now, you need to understand that, because that is crucial to understanding why we have Brexit and why those forces that the Tory party serves solely and only. They're the people, the corporations. Remember, they now have human rights. They are each corporation is a person. They are the people that the Tories represent. Us people, the vast majority working people and small business owners among the electorate, we are stock. Understand that. Ian Duncan Smith, that's what he said, that's how he referred to the British citizens, the average British citizen, on a televised tribunal. I think it was in 2013 or 2015? He said that in a televised live tribunal, he referred to British citizens as stock. And when he was queried about that, he laughed and he said, well, you know, that's what we call them. So they're people. Now, I am deeply concerned that Corbyn aides seem to want Brexit no matter what, says Margaret Beckett. Okay. So why? Why does any Labour member support Brexit? How can they be a member of the Labour Party and support Brexit? A Brexit which we know is going to give this government freedom and power to scrap workers' rights. 8 times. You can read it in the references. Everything that I'm saying in this document, you'll see at the end it is fully referenced. So she's refused 8 times to guarantee that leaving the EU, that Brexit, will not mean scrapping of workers' rights. She has refused to commit to protecting workers' rights. We know for a fact they want to scrap our human rights, which, according to the likes of Cambridge Analytica and Nigel Farage, well, they're only there for refugees and immigrants. Apparently. Why aren't they there for us? Why are people homeless in Britain, a nation that apparently still, at the moment, upholds human rights, and people have a right to shelter, they have a right to a home and a family life. So what is this government doing to protect that? Why isn't he asking some serious questions? Because we are talking about a terrorist attack from a criminal, actually terrorist government that has had the audacity to accuse people like me, who are asked the questions, who present the evidence. Oh, apparently I'm a non-violent terrorist. And I shouldn't, according to David Cameron, sit secure in thinking that, I might not be targeted by the police for my statements, my public statements, that they see as anti-establishment, but which I know is pro-human and pro-fact and pro-evidence. So I am disturbed that Jeremy Corbyn, cannot himself pick up on the letter of the law as a representative of the British people and as the head of the Labour Party that's supposed to be representing the workforce of Britain, and hopefully the children of Britain, whose future is now in peril. Now, either you people who call yourself politicians, who allege to be serving people like me, representing me, then I urge you to please pick up on the facts and get with the letter of the law and use it. use the power of the law to remove these criminals from office. Have them arrested and charged. David Cameron, for one, needs to be arrested and charged for his financial crimes, which are thoroughly evidenced by Gordon Bowden. And again, I'll leave you Gordon Bowden's link below. And I urge you, Jeremy Corbyn and other members of the Labour Party, please check the information. It is time you people started doing your job. You've had 5 wage rises, while the nurses of Britain have a 1% pay rise in how many years? And the cost of living have risen how much? And nurses dependent on food banks and being driven to suicide. I'm sorry, lives are at stake here. We're not talking about pedantics. We're talking about people's actual lives that are on the line. And 120,000 people are dead. Now, I wake up with that every single day, along with a lot of other filth that is going on in this world. Why aren't you waking up with it every day? Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party. Why aren't you waking up with the fact that 120,000 British citizens are dead directly through an economic policy? And what kind of economic policy is it that murders 120,000 British citizens? I would like to know. I am very disturbed, people. And I make these videos because you need to wake up, people. You need to wake up. There's a far greater, beautiful reality of life in this universe and what it means to be a human being. But we're barely even close to it because we're so caught up in the filth and the lies and the propaganda and the wars and the divisions. And our planet, our very planet is on the line. These people will eat and eat. They're like a cancer. They know nothing except what they can make for profits that day, that year, and they do not care about the next year, and they do not care about what it's taken, the price, the cost of getting where we were today. And I will say now that any Labour member, any Labour politician who supports Brexit is an enemy within. They are an enemy of the people. They are an enemy of future generations of Britain. And we are now on the front line. We are, as a consciousness, the last living line of defence for the next generation, who will be lost. Because, as we all know, the winners get to write the history, don't they? And they're already writing it. They're already writing it. The society established by post-World War II Britain, the people of Britain, apparently now it was a failed social experiment. And we know that everything we demanded, everything we established, it has been under attack continuously by the so-called right of politics. And they're actually the wrong of politics. They are the total wrong. And never, never again shall fascism be a choice. Fascism is not a political choice. It is a crime against democracy. And no democracy can ever vote for it without being a totally failed, subversive, corrupted democracy. So you, Jeremy Corbyn, you know I was going to break the 27 years, well, no, it's more than that actually, 30 years of not voting because you're such a waste of space, and I don't feel any of you really represented me with your wishy-washy approach, and certainly not Tony Blair. I stopped voting, and I was going to break that rule. I did vote in the referendum, okay? A referendum isn't voting for a politician, but I've never voted for any politician for over 30 years, precisely because there's none of you got a backbone, basically. But I was going to break that. I thought, for a moment there, here was a person that was taking the Labour Party back to its original ground. But no. At the moment, all he can promise is a soft Brexit. We don't really want a second referendum, Jeremy Corbyn. What we need is cancellation of Brexit due to the fact that the whole thing was orchestrated and implemented and paid for, actually, by a thoroughly corrupt Tory government who are a set of terrorists, and they do belong in jail. They do need to be criminally charged for their crimes against humanity, their crimes against the British people, for aiding and abetting terrorist nations abroad, like Saudi Arabia. It is outrageous. It's outrageous. So now I'm going to put the document up. I'm going to scroll through it. You'll just have to pause the video to read it. It does look like a long document, but please notice it is double spaced, and I've written it in font size 14 to make it easier to read. So thank you for taking time to listen and hopefully read and learn, people. So I apologise that my scroll through might have been a little bit choppy there, but as I say, you can pause it to read it, or you can contact me through Facebook with an email address, and I will send you a copy as an attachment. And I do ask you to please share it widely. It's time for every single one of us now to stand up and be counted against. Really, this is a war. We have faced an attack, and it is time not for us to attack back, but just simply to stand up for our rights.